(2026) Regional Convention be held in May, first weekend in May.
First weekend?
First weekend.
So
Okay.
that's like the 8th and 7th, 8th and 9th?
The 6th through the 9th.
Okay, that's Wednesday through Saturday.
Yes.
Right, okay.
That actually is, well, first weekend is actually, will be the first and second.
Technically, yes. But
Charlie gets hosed.
yeah, 6 through the 9th. We're about ready to sign a agreement with Embassy Suites in Tigard. It might seem kind of strange that we're attempting to do a convention where we're expecting anywhere from 70 to 100 attendees, and we can marginally get 20 to 25 at our division meets. We can do it. The thing is, what really makes these kind of events interesting is layout tours, operating sessions, and prototype tours. And I think if we can deliver on those types of items, I'm certain that we'll see good attendance. These events are primarily for people not from the division, from the other divisions, other 6 divisions in the region. And I'd say the last time we did this, 8 years ago, 6 years ago, we had Jeff Bunza do his Arduino clinic, and I think he did 2 clinics, as I recall, Jeff said. Both of those sold out early. So that was the type. That was a modeling with the masters of activity. If we can again generate that kind of interest, that kind of activity, it'll be a successful convention. So I look forward to. There are a number of positions we need to fill yet, and we'll be asking for your participation by email. But there are opportunities to get involved on the committee and work on this event. Okay.
Yeah, if you didn't know, the Pacific Northwest region, you've got Division 1, Southern Oregon. We're Division 2, Northern Oregon, Southwest Washington. Division 3 is Eastern Oregon and Idaho. Division 4 is Western Washington, Puget Sound. They are the 800-pound gorilla of the region, just because they've got the population density to be that. Division 5 is Northern Idaho and Montana, I believe. Okay. And 6 and 7 are both in Canada. So you got British Columbia, whatever's to the east of British Columbia, and I think whatever's to the east of that.
Alberta and Saskatchewan.
Yeah, Edmonton is part of the Pacific Northwest region. Alaska is actually part of Division 4. There are like, there's like 4 modelers up there, and they're part of the 4th Division.
Edmond has a really lively, thriving modeling community. It might seem like it's in the middle of nowhere, but I was at Northern Rails this last September, and it was one of the best events I've ever attended. So I'd like to reciprocate. If we can deliver on something that brings the Edmontonians, the Canadians down to visit us, I think it'd be a good opportunity to show what we can do.
Yeah, they like coming to the U.S. despite the exchange rate. We love going to Canada because of the exchange rate. But yeah, we are going to need a lot more people to be part of the convention committee. We will put out word on that fairly soon. If you have a layout, please consider volunteering to have your layout on tour. If you have an operating layout, please consider the potential for running an operating session or 2 during the convention. We're not going to twist arms, at least not very hard. But we would like you to consider it as something that will bring people into the convention. I'll put this out flat. The division actually has a fairly healthy budget. We've got a good sized bank account, and that's almost entirely due to the 2018 convention that we held in 2018, which Dave also ran. That money has been keeping us alive for the past 8 years as a division. the convention is effectively the only major money-making activity that any of the divisions do, and it's one of the reasons why the hosting gets circled through all of the divisions in the region. A good convention basically makes your budget for the next 8 to 10 years. 2027, I think it is. Right now, possibly, potentially, probably, I think that's enough weasel words, the national convention is most likely going to be in Tacoma. If you know Robin Peel, he and his crew are planning on running it. Last I'd heard, National was still asking them for more paperwork and documentation and proof that they actually can run a national convention. They ran what I believe was a very successful national narrow gauge convention coming right out of COVID up in Tacoma. So it's an experienced crew, and I expect it'll be one heck of a convention up there.
We have a number of people in this room, I just realized that helped out on that last event. Ross was involved, Jeff, Stu, and Craig Larson were involved. Now, we have, while we've got people here that were involved in the last event, bear in mind that we've lost Doug Alberg, we've lost Fred Kaiser, Charlie Comstock is not involved at this point, and so there are gaps, there are vacancies there, and there's an opportunity to participate. Again, we're not talking about a year-long or lifelong commitment, we're just talking about the duration of the convention, and most of that's making arrangements and phone calls, so there's nothing really technically demanding, but being involved in the committee.
One thing is, if you're looking at potentially doing a clinic at the national convention, the regional the year prior is an excellent place to practice. And if you have friends out there in the greater railroad world who might be considering doing something like that for a national, the regional the year before is a really great place to practice. So put out the word, we want clinicians. We're going to need them because every convention does. It's one of the major features of the convention.
Okay. Jeff?
Dave, may I ask a question of the crowd?
Sure.
General query. If you had your druthers in the realm of DCC, electrical, animation, anything of that ilk, what topic would you be drawn to? Now, some of you have no interest in any of that, I get that. But of any of that kind of topic, if you saw something in a clinic, what would you prefer to go to? What would you want to go to?
Does Deb Rail count?
Yeah.
Deb Rail. I was gonna say all of the above, but that'd probably get me in trouble.
You're already in trouble.
But not, I mean, seriously, dead rail is an interesting area. Animation is an area, I know, I remember seeing your clinic here last year, and that was quite interesting. At that point, I was nowhere near considering starting modeling again. Now I can think about it at least. I'm not doing it yet, but I can think about it. But I think that animation is an area. Anybody who's been to a national narrow gauge convention, you'll see animation taking over the concept room there, and there's some wondrous, amazing stuff that's coming out there. And a lot of it is not near as difficult as you want to make it, and that's the part that scares me.
Yeah, well, some of those clinics take over a year to prep. So that's why I wanted the opportunity to ask. Yeah.
So what animation?
Mark?
Gentleman in the back.
Animation, I do like flash photographers with like micro LEDs and all with a timing circuit. But I've seen in MR magazines and YouTube a lot going on with animation, say LEDs, timing circuits, but also what's that robotic circuit board stuff?
The Arduino?
Arduino.
Yeah, with tied in with some sound. Anything in that area, that's where I have a big interest. More that what is it called, Animino or whatever. So a lot of model railroaders know how to program that stuff, but I haven't dabbled with that yet. But that type of animation that adds bling to the layout, in my opinion, is an interest grabber.
If any of you come up with, we gotta have this, just grab me at one of the meetings here and let me know what your interests are. Thanks. Thank you, Dave.
Yeah. Mark, make sure you grab Jeff at some point today. He does all of that. And does it very, very well.
Yeah. And he doesn't run fast with that cane, so. if you
Right.
catch him, you
They're very easy to catch.
All right. Dave, do not go anywhere. At the, what was last year, 2024 National Convention at Long Beach, Dave here was awarded the national, I don't know, what is the actual title of the award? Hey, they gave me actual something to read. Since 2017, the National Model Railroad Association has honored its top division volunteers with the NMRA President's Award for Service to the Division. As you probably know, only one person from each region receives this award, and the nominees are chosen by the National NMRA Board, Pacific Northwest Region's Most Outstanding Volunteer for 2024. You have enriched the membership of fellow members, and it is proof of your commitment to the NMRA and our great hobby. Your tremendous support has enriched. Okay, I am going to get Gordy because he went and duplicated that sentence in the same paragraph.
Well, he speaks English, not American.
He speaks Scottish. Sometimes I can understand it.
Gordy?
Yes. We thank you for your time and energy and your dedication to helping ensure your fellow modelers get as much out of the NMRA as you have. Sincerely, Gordy Robinson, MMR, NMRA President.
Yeah.
They sent me home with that.
I say that I was surprised that people were calling me or sending me email, sending me messages congratulating me. I'm thinking,
For what?
For what? But I will say to be eligible for this award takes a great write-up, so I'm sure Jeff put together a great write-up, and I'm grateful for that. I just tried to help. That's all I wanted to do, and put myself in an officer's position. And these kind of gatherings are fun. This is what it's all about. So,
You've been the secretary and/or treasurer for how many years now?
probably 10, I think. If I can try to
And we
remember.
need a new secretary, by the way. He's given up that position. So
So there's an opportunity.
it doesn't have to be a elected member of the board to be the secretary, but can be an elected member of the board. So if you get a phone call from, I think Bob and Larry, thank you, are my father-in-law, are the two people basically, that and Greg running the, or no, actually it should be me this year, running the election committee.
Well, it's not me, and it's not,
Yeah, Greg is up, John Sparrow is up,
and me,
and you, okay?
so I'm not running it this year, the election. It'd be Larry,
Because you're really good at
Larry
it.
and you,
Ducking cover.
Larry and who's the, Warren.
Right,
Yes.
okay, Warner Swarner, myself, and Larry. We'll be calling around, basically saying, hey, give this some thought. Would you like to run for the board? And I'll be sending out all sorts of emails like you see me normally do. Then putting it up on Facebook, and putting it out on Discord if you're on the NMRA's interchange site. And if you need help getting on there, ask, please. End of that spiel.
All right. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
All right, we've got 3 presenters scheduled, and while they don't actually know what order they're going in, Pat, you are up first.
Oh, I are, wonderful. Setting the change eyes.
Looks like you brought your own computer too.
I know how to drive what I'm trying to do, because I'm not using PowerPoint, I'm going through a different program, so that's.
Well, if we need to unplug from me and plug into you.
Well, just if we can figure out a way to let me get my program even opened up. Basically, Jeff hit me with this Monday evening, as I had just gotten back from the Bay Area for a party down there, so I was thinking, well, what can I do? And I talked about an opportunity to get this thing alive and flying. And what I'm going to talk about is something that they do at the National Narrow Gauge Convention on a regular basis. Somebody down at PCR Coast Division threw it at us at AE, who walked in and said, you know, they got this great thing they do at the National Narrow Gauge called a square foot challenge. I'm going to break everything apart. And basically what you start with is this. 12 inches on the side. You can go to Home Depot, they buy the plywood in a 2 foot by 2 foot square, have them chop it down into 12-inch sections. You can now do 4 of these modules, and then I got extravagant and put 1 by 1s on the bottom of it. This is really high-tech modeling. Okay, now we start to figure out what the heck he's doing. And the quality, I'm going to apologize because I had to pilfer these off of some online stuff at the last minute, basically. What you've got is, the way we did it in PCR, is it was 12 inches by 12 inches, had to have a piece of rail. Not a pair of rails, a piece of rail. The National Narrow Gauge Convention is even more broad than that. It's got to be 12 inches by 12 inches. How tall you want to go is entirely up to you. And there were some that were probably about this tall, the 2019 National Narrow Gauge. And some amazing work. They had animations on some of them. This one is just a real simple. He decided to protect it with some plastic around it so you can, let's see, he built a box around it. He had electrical connection underneath there. Okay, come on, what's going on here? More than one moving part, I'm confused. We'll do it this way, screw it. This was a real simple one. 2 rails, a house, HO scale at the tower. This is about as simple as it gets. I still don't know what the heck I'm doing. There. Okay, that's not what I wanted. Fine. Heck with them. We're improvising this, guys. And he said, go to a regional convention or even a divisional meet and you get a chance to practice this stuff so you can learn how to do it correctly, which I didn't do.
This is what he's doing now.
And I don't know that I'll be giving this clinic at the regional, I hope not. I thought I've learned my lesson. This one again, nice piece of rail, an HO scale, a little road, a building, he's got a car and some little shotgun shacks. This is as difficult as it needs to be, or even more so. If you haven't done scenery before, this is the ideal way to learn scenery. Because on 12 inches by 12 inches, you can't screw up too badly. And if you did, you can throw it away and start on the next one. This one, the gentleman took it way outside the box. He was modeling Salerno, Italy, in Sicily, during the Second World War. He's got his rail. There's his rail, but there's nothing here that says anything but his 1/48 scale. Now he's trying something. He'd never done it before. He wanted to see if it would work. And it worked. I mean, you can, again, different modeling techniques, different weathering techniques. This one is back at the back of the room, which you can look at later on. You'll see there's an open window on this side of that building. And there's a room built inside there, and you'll see the inside of that room in a minute. But this one, I'd had the building from a modeling with the Masters clinic by Jimmy Simmons from Monster Model Works on building this building, and he had in-scale HO, and I did the O-scale one because I was modeling O-30. And it was just to learn on how to build a wooden building and make it look like brick. And then when they announced the clinic, the contest. I said, well, I got the building done, I had the loading dock done. The other stuff was in parts boxes and just sitting around, so wasn't a whole lot of extra work involved. The grade crossing, I'd never built a grade crossing before, I had not a clue what I was doing. You can try it. And there's a plus to all of this. I got this done for the contest that came in second or third. It was a popular vote contest. But then I took it to the 2019 PCR Regional Convention, entered it as a diorama, and entered the building as a building. So I got 2 contest entries out of something I just threw together in 3 months. And I did not win either, but at least I had fun doing it, and I got a chance to enter. If you pick up some points, you can get AP points. This all goes back together towards something. This is that room I talked about. If you go back there, you'll see there's an open window on this side, and this is what's inside that window. That high-tech room is 3 sheets of styrene, and then some styrene strip around the door to make the door, and I forget what I used for the doorknob. The table was, picked it up in a box of stuff at a swap meet someplace. I had that desk, I said, okay, I can use that. The tools, I think I actually ordered those online off of eBay because they were there as those scale details, so it was something we could do with. Lanterns up there, oil cans, a couple of gas cans in the background here. 2 guys, they're in that shot. Yeah, 2 guys talking about whatever was going on. Okay, throw a broom in there, throw a chair. All of a sudden, you've got a real classy room. The shade was just a piece of tissue paper painted with some very thin acrylic paint. That stuff you get at Michael's or Joann's. And you can see, I mean, the structure of the model itself is very simple. And there's where the power came in. There's a switch on the bottom. There's a light that's actually above the ceiling, a 1.5 volt light. So it's a little dim light bulb in there if I hook the battery up to it. But there, you can see a little more on the shelf behind them. But this is stuff you can do, and if you're getting to build a model for the AP, for a model contest in a regional convention, a lot of this stuff, I mean, Jack Burgess taught me the trick about using strip styrene for the door frame. A lot of this stuff is so simple to do, and I will say now, if anybody is interested in doing some buildings, if you're in a building, get in touch with me. Jeff has my email. I would be more than willing to talk to people about it, to say, well, show you what I've done. You can see one of the buildings back there. This stuff is not rocket science. You don't have to be Bill Decker to do this. It's very simple stuff. The biggest thing is attention to detail, to think about what you're doing before you take the next step. And that's building any model, whether it's a freight car, a passenger car, a structure, your home model railroad. Just think before you take the next step. And again, we're going back to the basics of just clutter on the desk, clutter on the shelves. That fine shelf in the background was some strips of styrene that were just glued together and stuck against the wall. Once you get done painting it, it does the job. How many people here have built things for the achievement program? Anybody? You got a couple. This is one of the easiest things in the world, and once you've done one, you're going to find out how disgustingly easy it is, and you're going to want to do more. My problem between COVID, retirement from the day job, moving to Oregon, and then getting moved into the house in Oregon, I lost 3 years of modeling. December was the first time I started doing any modeling since before COVID really came in. So I lost a lot of time. This gentleman built this shed in N3. Tom Knapp is not a bright person. I mean, who else would build a shay with 2 driven trucks in N3? He's got a 2662 logging locomotive that he also put together. The guy is an amazing modeler. has no secrets, and that's something you also find as you talk to people who are in the AP, who've started working towards it. None of us have any secrets. You'll learn from all of our mistakes, and everybody learns from the mistakes of others. Some of us get the privilege of being the others. But again, this is that in narrow gauge, so you can build a bigger model in the square foot. This person, I really can't figure out what his problem was. Anybody want to try to do this? I wouldn't do that in O scale, much less in it. But you know, I don't do traction for a reason. This one is not really showing well because of the angle it's taken at, but there's a mine up here and there's a tramway that comes down to this building. And then there's track across here. This is the person that took first place in our division contest because everybody just loved the tramway that did work. This gentleman went the other direction. He made a nice mine, but not being happy enough on the backside of this, he had the mine. So, you know, just, again, you get to try things that you wouldn't normally try on a 12-inch piece of material. You can't screw up too badly. One gentleman said, but you can't do G-scale on this. And if you'll see this car back there that's in the process of becoming 120.3 scale model on that diorama, just to prove that it could. Don't let anybody tell you you can't do something in this hobby, because the only reason you can't do it is because you've chosen not to. This gentleman had, it doesn't really again show well in the picture, but there's a log car down here that was crashed, and he cut the log car off at an angle, took a Dremel tool and cut it off so it matched the edge of the diorama, and that's again, you've got that 12-inch rule. As long as you put a 12-inch box down over it, you're good. But he's also an OM30 modeler. But he just wanted to try building a building, and this gave him an excuse. This one would not work for the simple reason we've got tracks coming off the edge of the module. And this one has no tracks. And work fingers. And nor does this one. And that's why they would not work. Now, they would work for the narrow gauge convention, but they would not work on the rules we had for the Coast Division PCR, because you had to have a piece of rail. Now, if he'd laid a piece of rail on the deck there, he would have met the rule. Doesn't have to be able to run a train on it, it just has to be a piece of rail. So, look at it. And I'm going to throw it to Jeff on one thing that if at any point in time you want to put that challenge out at one of our meets here, that's going to be the way to do it, is put it out there and say, okay folks, it's out now, you guys decide what to do with it. But yeah, it's what you want to do. I would encourage for a division meet to put it out there, give somebody 3 months or 6 months and say put it together. And again, same thing. Once you've built it, bring it to the regional convention. You've probably got a structure on it. You definitely have a diorama. So you've got a model contest entry for the regional convention, and that's one more model than they had the week before. So take it on yourself to do it. When we get a bit of a break, go back and take a look at the model back there, and I'll be back over there to answer questions you might have about, well, how did this happen, or why did this happen, or how did you do this? I have no secrets on any of those models that are back there. But yeah, that's awesome. And this thing, I've got two more of these sitting at home that are going to get more square foot challenges built. Just because I've got enough crap in my junk boxes. Somebody, kindred spirit, I can tell. You've got the stuff in the junk boxes. Do something with it. Throw it out there. When I was building this one, we'd go to the Great American Train shows in the Bay Area, and I'd be sitting at a table working on the model and talking to the public. And said, you don't need that just off your living room to have a model train set up. Right here, you've got model trains. And that was one of the things that we really pushed. That's something else you may want to look at for future train shows is to get a couple people there who aren't selling. They've got a model project they're working on, a freight car, building an out-of-the-box red caboose freight car. Those things don't just fall together. And sit there and build it and talk to the public while you're building it. Tell them, what did I get out of the NMRA? You know, it's a marketing ploy. But this is something you can look at. I think that that's all I had on that one, yes it is. So I'm gonna back out of that and figure out what I'm doing. More than one moving part, I'm in trouble. Close that. But that's pretty much it. I will say any model you can build, you can use it for the achievement program. And some people do not like the AP. They look at it as competitive modeling. I go the other side of the coin. I'm competing with one person, and that's the fool in the mirror. When I'm building, I want my next model to be better than the last one. You know, that little saw fighter's cabin back in the back there was something I started on, and I looked at it and said, well, this isn't right, and this isn't right. And I was dumb enough to try to fix it, and kept adding things to it. And that one, I put the last piece on as I was packing my car to go to the convention. So it's what you want to do. Always feel free to put a little bit of you into the model. You know, even Jack Burgess, who models the YV in August of 1939, and he models exquisitely. There's always a little personal touch in there someplace if you know where to look for it. Any model you build, make it yourself, put your signature on it, just like Michelangelo signing his artwork, or you know, you're signing your artwork. Put something on to make it unique, and have fun. More than anything else, have fun. If you're not having fun, you're doing the modeling wrong. Something's missing there. And talk to your fellow modelers. What did they do? How did they do it? What can you do to make it better for you and to achieve what you're trying to achieve? Because we're all in this hobby for a reason of some sort. You know, me, it was lack of judgment. My dad worked for the railroad for 30 years, so I grew up with the Southern Pacific. I grew up around trains, and then ran into a bunch of really good modelers over the years who pushed me and nudged me a little bit each time about, well, you know, this didn't happen, or that could make this a little bit better. And I was not smart enough to just tell them to go away, so I listened to them. That's about it. I'm going to give it back to you, Jeff, because I think I've done all the damage I can do.
All right, and Jeff?
Any questions from anybody?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Your picture of the mine provoked something.
Uh-oh. Yes, sir.
Does the base have to be 12 inches square, or could it be
The
8
base?
by 18?
12 by 12.
Has to be 12 by 12.
12 by 12. That was, we got into a big discussion. Was it have to be 144 square inches or what? Or we just 12 by 12 just to keep it simple.
Okay.
The whole idea is to make it as easy as possible. But again, the guy did it with the mine, and it worked even on 12 by 12.
Right, got it. The track sticking out over the edge,
Outside the 12 inches.
understand. What happens if that's sticking out 12 inches above the base?
As long as it doesn't go outside of that 12-inch, I've got a 12-inch box, I'm dropping down.
It's the whole box.
Yep. It's a top,
Okay.
it's a
So it
lidless,
can't go like this.
no, it's a lidless box. Think of it that way.
Okay.
That was one of the things, because we thought, no, we had a lot of discussion, a lot of a very fun discussion actually about, well, how can we circumvent the rules type of thing? And, hey, we're model railroaders. You know, the rules are they're guidelines. But that's the bottom line.
But there's no vertical height issue.
No, like I said, there was one at the National Narrow Gauge in 2019 that I think was 3 feet tall. And it was a cliff, and they had a guy being lowered down the cliff with a crane, and that was animated, to get down to a car that was at the bottom of the cliff. So, you know, you can try that type of stuff. The one I really liked there, I think everybody's seen that picture of the steam engine laying in the river as the water's flowing over it. Some guy modeled that and did a beautiful job of it. He learned how to model. He said he'd never modeled water before he did that diorama. You learn something. You know, I mean, heck, he came out of it, he was smarter than he was before he started. Maybe he wasn't smart enough to realize he shouldn't have started, but that's a problem he had to work through. Any other questions?
And if you happen to have a 12-inch by 12-inch piece of 2-inch pink foam laying around,
That'd be perfect.
so it doesn't have to be,
No, I just grabbed this because I was looking for something, I didn't have the pink, I have the pink foam at home now, but I didn't have it at the time. And I had walked into Home Depot to grab a piece of door skin, basically, and I saw this 2-foot by 2-foot piece of 1/8-inch ply. I said, that'll be perfect, and had them slice it in quarters for me. So they did the hard work, and then grabbed 2 4-foot pieces of 1x1 and just chopped them down. Yes, sir.
So the engineering, 12 inches plus or minus what?
We're not gonna argue about a 1/16 of an inch.
Well, okay. So-
I mean, it's a nominal 12 by 12.
Okay.
This one and that one, I think, are actually a little bit undersized,
Yeah,
which is because you have to curve for the saw when you're cutting it. And that to me is fine, because I'm gonna go to Tap Plastic for that one and get a 12-inch by 12-inch box. Probably about 3 inches higher than that building, so I can put it to protect it from dust when I have it sitting in what's gonna become my crew lounge. You know, it can be on display, I can look at it. I enjoy looking at it every day. I see it because I know what I put into it, and that to me makes it special to me. And again, that's any model you build. When you get done with it, if you look at that model, you're gonna think about the time you spent on it and what you put into it, and that's what makes it special. The bottom line is that's a piece of you, like it or not. If it's not quite as good as you want it to be, well, make the next one better. I'm not competing against Bill Decker, I'm not competing against Jeff, I'm competing against the idiot in the mirror, and that stops right there. And he's beaten me a number of times, so but that's about all I'm gonna say on that one, and I will pull this out for you and give you back your HDMI cord.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, and just so you know, he called back that, I love you, Pat, can you do this? And I didn't turn and run, my error.
We're glad you did that.
Just a brief introduction to those who don't know me, I'm Pat Latorre. I'm a past president of the Pacific Coast region. I have picked up 3 of those AP certificates for survival, that is author, official, and volunteer.
I've got the same
Those
three.
are easy. To get the volunteer certificate, it is a no-brainer, just help out, and you'll get those hours in a heartbeat. Author, if you can tell a story, if you can tell a good lie, you can write a story, either Cynthia will print it in the NMRA, or you can, I got mine by putting it online in a, not Groups.io, Yahoo groups that the PCR had going, and I put out this thing, and then it made it into the PCR house organ, but that got me my author certificate. Do a clinic, a couple clinics at a convention, you're working towards your volunteer points. So I can only encourage people, go for the AP. It's so easy, and it's so much fun, because each time you build a model, you want to do a little bit better. I'm one away from, I scratch-built Locomotive away from motive power, and because I lost 3 years, that didn't get done. I know all the pieces are, so I can get back to work on it.
well, we know where the evaluators are.
Exactly, and I won't have to make contact with you folks.
Ross is our AP manager.
That's you? Okay, good. We need to talk anyway, because I've got some other things I need to talk to you about.
Sure.
Actually, I may throw one at you today and have you guys, well, I don't have the paperwork on it, so I won't throw it to you today, but I've got one. It's made 84 points so far, and I'm trying to figure out if I have to build it again in scratch build it to get those extra 3.5 points, but that's another issue. But that's about it. I will let you go and
Okay,
get out of the way.
and I will be talking to Pat and a
And give me
couple
the
other
clinic.
people, and we'll be getting one of these contests
Easy.
going, I think.
Yeah, and give me the clinic is easy. I just did it and I had 4 days of notice, so it can be done.
And
Thank you.
And one thing that we will be discussing is the idea of the square foot. But if you want to model in N scale and want something that you can put together to start operating with, have you ever heard of T-Track? These are about 12 inches by 14 inches, a couple of pieces of Kato Unitrack across the front, and whatever you want across the rest of it. They make them in single of that size, double, triple, quads. The rules in T-Track seem to be made to be broken. And they do wild things with them. Definitely has some Fremo influence in there. But I look at making it a joint square foot T-Track. And if somebody would prefer to do a T-Track, I'm not gonna kick them out of bed.
Something I didn't mention, you're building your home layout, you've got a little segment in your home layout you want to use, put it into the home layout when you're done with it as 12 inch by 12 inch. And it's like building a model for a contest that's gonna end up on your railroad. Do the same thing with one of these.
I've seen lots of layouts where people will have a section cut out that they build the structure, put it in. If they want to change the structure out or change the period of their layout, pull the structure out, put another one right into the same footprint. You can do that with this. Because it doesn't have to be 1 1/4 inches high. It can be on a piece of masonite. Okay, I need to reconfigure slightly for Robert's presentation. This is in the middle of building his basement empire. He showed us some, heck, it's been at least 2-3 years now, ago, where you did a presentation on a year and a half, okay, on your helix.
Right,
And here he's been working on a peninsula.
right.
So,
So, my layout is not 1 foot square. It's a little bit bigger than that. I've got 450 square feet in my basement. I've knocked out a wall in I had a family room, and then I had a bedroom down there, and I knocked out the wall of the bedroom, and so now I've got about a 32 by 15 foot room in the basement. And I would consider Bill's layout a large layout. And mine's is probably more, just barely a medium-sized layout, I guess. 450 square feet. Yeah. So anyway, I modeled the Great Northern Railroad, the Cascade Division. It's a point-to-point railroad, which goes around the wall, 2 levels. I don't know, I'll point here. We don't want to point. But this lower level is one of the lower levels coming back. This is the part of the railroad that comes back from Everett to Interbay, Seattle. But the details Wenatchee to Everett, and I have a fiddle yard, which is the east end of the layout, the east point, and that's in Spokane. And then I have a fiddle yard, which is called Interbay, which is the west end of the layout. The time frame is is 1929, January 8th or 10th, when the new Cascade, 7.9 mile Cascade Tunnel opened up. And I go over to about 1930. So all of this takes place before the Depression time frame. So in June 10th of 29, that's when the Great Northern started or inaugurated its Empire Builder service. And that was shortly after the opening of the tunnel, as I just said. And then the Omaha orange and the green colors, that came in 1947 on the new diesel. So that's way out of my area, so you'll not see any Omaha orange GN, Omaha orange and green. I do electrics and steam only. Part of my display is back there. I have Y1 electric and I have a Z1 electric. And what my theme of the puzzle is, or the layout, is to do the change out of equipment in Wenatchee, which this is Appleyard, which is in the other end of Wenatchee. Do my change out of equipment from steam coming in from Spokane. They take the power off, the steam power off, and they hook up to electrics, and then they run the electrics all the way up through the east side of the mountain, up through the top, in down the tunnel, and back into Skykomish. And then they drop the electrics and re-hook up to steam and go back to Everett, or go down to Everett. And it's vice versa going the other way. So I've just put a couple of the Y1 electric and a little explanation about them, and the Z1 electric, so you can see what they look like and what their size like. This is all NHO. Normally they run the Y1s in combination of 2s, sometimes 3s, and currently, after they opened up the tunnel, originally all they had was Z1s to do all the switchbacks with the old tunnel open up. But now, since they've got the new tunnel up, they use the Z1s as helper cars. They log in maybe 2, 3, 4 of them in the middle of the train to help it go up over the mountain. So I also have a 6-tier helix with a 34-inch radius track going up and a 31-inch radius track coming down. And I used the larger radius to go up because that cuts down on the drag. And I did a clinic of how I built the helix, and at that time I'd had some other work done. This picture here represents Appleyard, right in front. We don't have a pointer.
You want a pointer? I'll get mine out.
This is a Z1 electric sitting here, and that's the new electric shop. This was built, all of Appleyard was built starting in 1922. Will that work with his?
Yeah, just hit the red button.
Oh.
You're not gonna get the advanced, but you'll get the pointer at least.
Red button. Okay, there we go. And then this is the electric building that's built for doing all the work on the Y1 and the Z1s, and eventually they used it for the W1s, but the W1s didn't come, they were a much bigger unit, they didn't come out till 1947. That's this is a scratch built, not scratch, it's kind of a scratch built or a kit built. Not scratch built, kit built.
It is
Two units I put together and made into one electric shop, and those are made out of Walter's kits. The other one over there is a round table. They had actually 26 stalls around this in the original area. I have room for about 7. And this is a 90-foot turntable because we don't have many big units on it. And those little units up on top are the fans. And this is all scratch built. I got drawings from the Skykomish roundhouse from the PNR library, and they gave me a set of drawings, copies of drawings, and I started with those drawings and I built that totally. Okay, next. So this is moving on to the right.
What's the material for your roundhouse? What'd you build it out of? The roundhouse?
Wood,
It's wood.
all wood,
Okay.
all wood. And then I used black paper cutting strips to simulate the tarred roofing, and actually, if you back up, these little units here, I took one and molded it out of plastic or out of clay, and I made myself a mold of it, and then I poured out all of these, and in fact, I still got a couple extras of those left over, but I made them because they had the big conical shaped fan housings, is what they are, to ventilate roundhouse. But then I drilled, then I took a, I think it took about a 3/4 inch drill, and I drilled the hole almost down through the bottom so you could look like they were open in the end when you look down. So, okay, next slide. So this is Wenatchee itself, and by the way, it took me 6 months trying to figure out how to paint those backdrops that I did. That's the, these are the hills above Wenatchee coming down, and this area where the garbage can is the Columbia River, basically. You're walking in the Columbia River. But this is Wenatchee. It goes through, it comes off. This is a separate power district than the one we just showed. That was the separate power district. And then the next slide, this is existing. This is looking back the other way in Wenatchee. You can see I have my crossovers and switches, and I have several switches that go out in this particular area. This one is going to an ice manufacturing facility that will be located out in the front edge of the table. This is the depot for the original Wenatchee depot. All right, next page. This is as you come through the wall, then you jump from Wenatchee area to Cashmere. This is Cashmere, and it's just going to have a simple station. And Cashmere has a few tracks for sorting. The reason I have Cashmere on there is that my grandpa used to be a station agent at Cashmere in the 30s. So. And from there, as you notice on the other slides, all that base was homosote on top of 1/2 inch plywood, 1/2 inch homosote. This is plywood, but here I've just used my profile boards are homosote also. I got those from Cascade Supply. I don't think he's in business anymore, making homosote. And then as we leave and start up what they call Chumstick Canyon, I changed processes and went to spline board. And it's a total of 5 pieces of 1/4 inch masonite spline, and I put them together. I made my curves and got them in, and then put them together. So next slide. And that's the junk. That's my work area, as you can see. And that's what it looked like about a year ago and a year and a half, and it stayed that way for a long time. The back, in the back there, you can barely see it, that's my helix in the back. And this is the lower level down here, which is behind all this junk, is the Everett part of the layout. This area up here is Snoqualmie, and that's the Snoqualmie part of the layout. And then the upper level is where the trains, I'm storing styrofoam that I'm going to use to build mountains with. I'm actually going to do sort of a mountain scene on top with a logging operation up there. But right over in this left-hand corner, it comes out and goes around and back down the down track again.
So your helix services 3 levels?
Yes.
What's the total rise?
Well, I call this, the Everett level is level 30, this is about level 50, and this is level 60. That's inches off the floor.
Okay.
And again, all of this is made out of bill girders. I used a 1x3 with a 2-inch L girder, and then on the bottom I used a 1x4 with 2-inch L girders. Okay, so that's what it looked like. Let's change the next slide. Oh, this is also, the lower yard down there is Inner Bay, and then the upper yard is Spokane, and there's a Y out here on the end of it. And then down underneath this Y area is a turntable for Inner Bay. Okay, next slide. And that's the looking into that area there. So
What
this
do you
is
use
the
for track and switches?
what?
Track and switches, what do you use?
Track is microengineering track,
83?
83. code 83,
And switches?
and switches are all fast track hand built.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So I've built so far 73, 74 hand track switches yet. They're all, on my main line, everything is number 6 turnouts, and then there's a few places where I get tightened up, and it's not on the main line, but in some of the yard areas, I go to a 5 as my smallest switch. And these are built myself, these boards, and what I've done is I do how do I say it? I do a diagram of that on a program, and I forget the name of the program. I diagram that out, and then I do the coloring on it, and then I take a snapshot of that, and I put it in and print it out on photo paper. And then the photo paper, I take all of that and I laminate it on a laminator, so I have a lamination over the top, yes.
What's the depth of those layers? How deep are they from the front to the back?
Oh, this is from here to there,
Yeah,
that's about 22 inches.
that's your maximum?
Yeah, well, when you get over, when we were showing the apple yard area where we had the turntable and that back in there is about 40-some feet, 40 inches back to the corner. Yes.
Basically,
Well, so how do you get into the back corner on the lower level?
You have, it doesn't show it, but where those blinds are, that's a slider, 6-foot slider that goes out to the deck. And right to the left of where this picture is, or to the right, excuse me, there is a gate. And that gate swings closed, and right now, there's about 1 foot to 2 foot inactivated when the gate is open. So you can't run a train through it. But the upper level is Spokane, the bottom level is Seattle, and those are all separate power districts again. So I can isolate
lower level,
Interbase Seattle.
huh?
Lower level is Interbase Seattle.
Which you're 22 on the lower level, upper level's what, 20?
22 also,
Oh,
it's the
22
same.
also.
They're identical. Drop straight down. And then there's another, this is all tortoise switches underneath because I don't want anybody reaching in and trying to throw switches. The upper part, this is switched by this, but around the feed into the area that leads into the track, but then as you get over here, you can reach in, and I've got all hand-controlled switches. Next slide. Okay, so we had that mess in front, which you just saw. I backed off. This is what it looked like originally before I had all kinds of stuff tacked up on it. But this is the helix, and this is the level I used, and these are 2x3s. I built these little frameworks. They all got T-feet on the bottom of them, so you can readjust every one of them up to whatever level you want. And then this is a 1x4 L girder with a 2-inch top, 1x2 top, and then this is a 1x3 L girder. And then I support these on the vertical with these fabricated angles. Okay, next. That's another shot of it. I show how this top piece goes through it. I got a little cut down, and this is an old picture. Goes back several years. And this all sits on, this is all the level. Now, the top, as we said, it comes out only to just about beyond this portion of the railroad, and then it ends.
Now, is that the wall you cut out?
Huh?
We're looking through the wall that you
Yeah,
removed?
this is the wall I cut out. I'll give you.
No, that makes sense.
Are those regular shelf brackets with a fabricated diagonal on it?
Yes, at the bottom of Hokie. They're a 12-inch shelf bracket, and each of these runners going out are L girders shapes. And each of these pieces across the end are L girder shapes. And you can see they're open to add the next section on it. Okay, next. So that's a year ago. So here we are today, or 2 weeks ago. As you can see, it's gotten even messier. But I cleaned up the front of it, and so now I had stopped my peninsula construction right about where you can see how I opened up the room. There used to be just a man door. I cut all that out, rerouted all the electrical. I put a double 2x12 header across the top of that opening, and then I sheetrocked it in that. I've also put in, it doesn't show it here, but all the lighting up above, there's 23 LED floods, I guess you call them, can lights. And then over there, there's another, excuse me, there's 12 can lights in this room, and then there's another 20 can lights in that room. I'm sorry, there's a total of 23 can lights. I think there's 13 there, and over in this one is 12 or 15, I can't remember now. But anyway, all of this again is I continue to back out with 1x4 construction on the side rails. Each of these vents I fabricated in there, and I had them all pre-made up when I did the original vents, so I had them all laying around somewhere. I used screws in the cross bracing and up here in the top, and what I did is I screwed it in the lower level first, and then I plumbed it, got it all square away, and then did that. So now we're coming to the method of where I'm going to explain the new, or not new, but the backdrop that I put along the center of this aisle here. This is the end, and it's the nosing, and I'll show you a little bit more about that later, but I expanded that out to a 2x6 there. Next slide. A little bit more of the same. I got the top runner on, that becomes the top line of my
Yeah.
I don't know what you're going to say, backdrop area. Okay, next slide. Another view of it from the other way. That's the slider out there, and I don't know if you can see it, but this section right here swings back to there, and it comes back in and closes this gate. And the trains run on the lower level here, coming around underneath, and then the other trains come on the upper level.
You got access.
Huh?
You've got access.
Yeah, so I can crawl underneath and come up in the, and work over in this corner underneath if I need to. So, next slide. Okay, we went a little bit too fast. We're missing some slides. They're out of order, I guess. Keep switching down. Keep going down, down. Well,
Question being, is the slides in here?
yes, they should be. We're seeing the whole program before I finish telling about it.
Oh, well.
They're not in there. All right. Well, so I was going to explain the material that I used for the backdrop. And this material was used in the, this material was used, the idea came in the June 2018 model railroad. And it's an aluminum PVC siding. It's used in siding area. It's a very thin, flexible siding, and I lay it out, and I've got a couple of boards. Let's see here, let me get the pointer. I've got a couple of boards stacked, and I built myself a little unit that sits on top of that, and then I put the roll on it. So I rolled it out part way, when the roll sits down, it sits so that it's even, the top of the roll sits when it's even with the top of the rail. Keeps me from bending this is very flexible stuff, and you can kink it pretty easy. In fact, you can observe one area right about there is where I got kinked in it. So next slide. So here we are. We've come around the corner. You can see why I expanded out and I made the bulb for the end piece as it comes around. And this piece, I've just rolled it out all the way and clamped it. And here's the little, I put 4 joist members lined up underneath it, and then I built this little rig for this to set on. And it holds it right at the perfect level. So I unroll it, stack it there. I clamp it so it doesn't spin out on me. And then I clamp it. Now this shows I'm just holding it in place. I haven't put any of the screws in or anything.
How wide is the roll?
It's a 2 foot by 50 foot.
So that's
24 inches by 50
24
foot.
inches tall right
So
there.
that's 24 inches tall, that
Cool.
roll. And as you can see, it has a PVC coating on the face of it. And in the next slide or two, this shows going down. I put about a 3/4 inch pinhead type screw all the way along every 18 inches and runs down there. That's a reverse shot of the same thing. Next shot. That's the nose as we come across, go around the end of the peninsula. Next shot.
PVC on metal?
It's an aluminum material. It's very thin, comes in a roll, and I had pictures of it and shows how you get it. You can buy the 24 by 50 foot box of this stuff. It's called PVC aluminum coil, and it's $115.70, and that's 2 years ago, so it's probably gone up. Which it pays for one roll.
PVC coating allows you to put latex paint on it.
Correct. We'll show that. So here I am coming around, and the next shot, let's go see what I got in here. That shows that it's out of order again, but that shows that I painted. You can see the paint line here, and I painted that the sky blue. It's the same thing that I painted the whole darn room, all sky blue. And this shows you how it sets up in the air so it holds the top right level. Now I can't go beyond there because I've got this level that's sitting on those corner bracing, the galvanized corner bracings holding it up. So I have to take that down. So that's my next step, was to take that down, roll it on out, and then after they were done, I put them back up again. So let's go to the next slide. That's the shot going down after it's been painted. It's all sky blue paint on it, so I can paint the backdrops on it. I really have actually I was trying to figure out how to do this. From here all the way down, these are the joists that runs across the top of my L girders, and then the plywood lays right on top of that. But you can see I have, it doesn't go all the way to the bottom with the 24 inch. And that's okay because Everett is built on a hill. So there'll be styrofoam hills on both sides of that coming out to form the Everett hillside. Okay, next. Oh, back up one. This shows the the elevation 50 back in place. I measured those out and set them all back in place. Okay, next slide. That comes around the corner. You can see I got a little bit of a lump in here. But this is the elevation 50 level laying on the benchwork below it. Next. That's another shot looking from about the helix is to the left of my picture, and shows going back. So this is the whole length looking at the peninsula. You can see my overhead one goes out and it lines up along with this side here. Then next shot. That's standing back at the helix. On the other side, this is, I have a lift-out gate right here. It goes in, this eventually goes right into the helix about right here. Okay? That's just another shot showing the elevation 50 level where Skycomi's sitting in. This is the one, as you can see, this is the outside of the room. This is right about the end of where the 60 level ends. After that, it's all, and so I'm not building any more of the 50 level until I get all of my track laid and all buildings and scenery, part of the scenery done anyway. So I can work over the top of it without crowning myself all the time. Okay, next slide. That's showing same thing on the other side. You can see where this ends right here. So it's just a little bit past that room. Okay, next slide. Another shot. Okay. So here we go. This is the 60. I don't have my drawing, but my drawing will show this. Actually, the helix sits in the center of this room. And as it comes out, it shifts over, this alignment shifts over 1 foot from the center of the helix. So it comes out at an angle and then goes straight again on out to into the room we're standing in. But these were equal sides. I took a 6-foot piece and lay across there, and I built that side. Now, here in that wall there is 11 inches. And I'm starting to do a lot of work and getting, we'll see that later, but a lot of track in here. And I have wrapped my head on that edge at least 10 times, if not 20.
Foam lined hat.
So, the
Use a roundover bed on the underside of
well,
your structure.
the things what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna chop off 11 inches of that off so that it lines up flush with this runner here. So I can still do that. I don't need that area out there. I'm gonna go back and cut it all off and take away the head knocker. Next slide. More of the same. Next slide. More of the same. Next slide. Now you can see I'm starting to, you can see the effect of the shift over of this being centered here, and you come over and you start the alignment coming down this way. Next slide.
I have a question.
Yeah.
What kind of lumber are you using for your 1x3 cross pieces there? It's pretty clear.
Well, these pieces here,
Yeah.
those are all hemlock. It's
Okay.
expensive. It's nice and straight and pretty well grained. Some of the other pieces is just #2 pine.
Yeah.
Most of the other stuff that I use. This is all hemlock up in here. Most of all my joists are all hemlock. So now I'm starting to lay stuff on there. You can see I've pinned up my drawing for that lower side. I've got a map here that's a 1936 map. On the other side, I've got a map that's a 1900 map of Everett. So it lays out. And this unfortunately, it's out of order, so you'll see some of these things as I go back on, but somehow my slides got mixed up. But along here, as you go along here, this is all Port Gardner Bay. So there is a lot of lumber companies, Scott Paper, there's shingle companies, and they all, so I'm gonna have, this is all gonna be a water effect on this side, which will all represent the bay. And then I'm gonna have some buildings sitting out there which will run track so I can put some cars out over the water and run them into the different buildings. Next slide. And there's more of a mess. This is my opening, and I'm starting to, this is the lower track is coming out along this line. Actually, the track up to about this point, right about here. It comes up here, the lower track stays at this level, and there's a total of 2 tracks that run along there. And then another track comes out here and gains in elevation, I'm gonna have about a 2% grade. And right about where that towel is the location of the Everett station. And that station, then after you leave the station, that line is for passenger traffic to go from east to north. So it'll actually go through as a tunnel underneath Everett. Everett had a tunnel under there, about 400-foot tunnel. And it goes along there, swings around, and goes back in, and then starts climbing up the helix. Next slide. Here I am starting to get plywood down for this side of it. And I was thinking of using ripped plywood here in small pieces, but I'm thinking I might do a little bit more on that. But this side is all going to be solid plywood. Next slide. Oh, back up. So this is my end piece, and this is a 34-inch diameter, actually a radius of 34 inches to here, and then I got a straight section and another 34 radius back to that side. And that gives me enough to do maybe a 31, 33-inch diameter or radius track coming around there. Next slide. And that's more of the same. That's looking back down the other way. Again, this is all from about here on. This is all going to shift over, and I've got to figure out how to do a water feature along the whole front of that side there. So, next slide. And next slide. Here we got more plywood going in. Next slide. All right, so this has now got Homosote on it all the way through. This is going to be the Delta yard in Everett, and there's a Y, Delta Y in there. I'm not sure I can get the Y in. And so now I'm building my end piece across the end here, and I ripped this down, and this form an 8-foot piece. So what I did is I put that in and cut it off, and I put another 8-foot piece, and I kept a gap in there so that I can just put a 6-inch piece. But instead of using this is saving plywood. Next slide. You can see that's a 6-inch gap coming in, and that's my 34-inch what do you call those things?
Sweepstakes.
Huh?
Sweepstakes.
Sweepstakes, yeah. Okay. Thank you. Next slide. And there's the Homosote on it, and that now becomes my plan area where I lay my charts out. Go ahead, next. And that's another shot of that looking out. And again, you can see this is the gate area as you come in. It's a pretty tight squeeze to get through there. But, here we go. Here's the picture of that stuff that's coiled up. You can see it's coiled up. It's pretty thin. Let's see, next slide. All right, this is a 1900 map of the city of Everett. This is about coming out of the helix right about here, goes up, and here is the station. The blue lines are all Great Northern. I think the reds are Northern Pacific, and this orange is interurban lines. Or maybe it's the purple is the interurban. But there's Milwaukee's in here, and Northern Pacific, and GN. So GN is the blue. So it comes up here, and then if you notice, it has these switches that roll out, and it delivers materials out to different companies' docks out in here. This is all water out in here. This is the bay. And they built sort of a, I won't be able to build that in there, but this is sort of a breakwater in there so that allows to keep the waves down, and they load a lot of ships up and ship this stuff out to the Orient in those days. This is again 1930s.
I think they park a carrier out there now.
Yes, they do.
Probably do. Okay, next slide. That's the rounded area finished up. I haven't figured out how this is all gonna be water down here, and water's probably around in here. So this is all Port Gardner Bay to here. And then on this side is the Snohomish River. So if you're working on the center aisle, you're in the Snohomish Winter here, or Snohomish River. And if you're working over on this side of the layout, you're standing in the Columbia River. So there are all kinds of, depending on where you're working, you're always standing in water somewhere.
Railroads and rivers.
And then,
Yeah, we go out
here again is my head doctor out here, and I'm gonna cut that off right about here. Okay, next slide, that might, well, that, you can see that's now become my plan table.
You're right.
To let out, there's another map, and this map is 1936, so it's after my time, but it gives a good idea of what the shape was, and you can see the nose part, actually, right about this level here is Broadway Avenue down Everett, and it was right at the top of the hillside, and then the whole thing rolls down. So this gap will be covered with hillside. That hillside is probably going to come out along in here, and then the rest of this will all be Delta Yard. Next slide. And there's another picture of it. I think that's Broadway right about there. And there's no houses or anything in this area on the point. And this shows you all the different businesses that had docks where you ran. They had them going in off this way, and they had them going in that way. So you would dump your cars either coming or going, depending upon which direction you were moving in. It'd be easiest to drop off the cars. All right, next slide.
Actually got an area where a peninsula down the middle of the room with a big turn-back curve is prototypical.
Yeah.
All right, here we're
Has to be
starting.
one.
This is what this stuff looks like. It's got a coating. Ooh. This should have been in the first part of the slide, or the first part of the show, but
How thick?
it has a PVC coating on the outside, and then it's aluminum siding on the inside.
About how thick is that?
Oh,
I mean, 1/16 of an inch?
16th maybe, yeah.
Okay, just curious.
All right,
Something
next.
like that.
There's another picture of it. This is actually what I have left over from all the work that I've done now, so.
You cut that with shears?
I cut it with a knife. It
Cut it
actually,
with the
I
knife?
cut it with a
Utility knife?
utility knife, yeah.
Oh. Like a mat knife?
This thing right here.
Oh,
And I
God.
just sit there and I lay a metal ruler over it, and I just, about five strokes down it, and it just snaps right on line.
So that
It's easy to work with.
really
I was-
thin.
I was surprised that it is. Okay, this is what it comes in. That's the roll, and again, this is $115.70 for one of these things. Now it's probably 150, 170.
How much do you have left? $3 a foot.
I actually have another whole box of this left,
I don't need that much.
and
I'm sure we can get some of that sold.
And I've got, if you, I don't know what slide, there's a whole bunch of slides back when I was showed the operation of the terminal points, Spokane with, what's their name underneath.
Yeah.
I had 2x2s lined up on the wall, and then I have those racks where I store my cars into the 2x4s. And then there's a part on the end where those are still showing, so I'm gonna fill that all up with this stuff and paint it blue so it'll blend in. And this is from the article, June by Mindenheim when he did it, but this is, they use it as simple 2x2 or even less in the inside, and they make a wall all the way around, and it really bends and works nice. They painted sky blue, and it works great as a backdrop.
So he's got it self-supporting there.
Yeah,
Okay.
Because the curve probably gives it a lot of strength too.
Yeah.
the curve strengths in it. But, these sticks are probably anchored down below, so they're more, they're not just tacked to the top of the table.
Maybe 2 bites.
Okay. All right, here's my drawing of Everett. Here's what was in the beginning of the show. This is the helix, and you can see how it's offset to go down through this way. And then here's the idea of the bay coming through here, and with off to feed docks, tracks coming off to feed the docks, and then going around. And this is up north. This is the Snoqualmie River going back this way. Okay, next slide. What do we got left? Oh, this shows you how I did the nosing. This was the 2x6 in there. I took another 2x6, ripped it from a 2x2, or not a 2x3, up to a 2x6 to form, and then I put another 2x3 in there to give me a nice rounded nose. Working. Okay, next one. That's the fasteners that I used for the aluminum foil, aluminum siding.
That's it.
That's it?
That's it.
Okay.
Terrific.
Next clinic is when I get playing track on it.
There you go.
How did you hide the screw thread, the screw heads?
What's
Paint it
that?
over them.
How did you hide?
I
the
just
screw-
painted over them. You hardly even notice them.
There's no mud or anything on top?
Nope. Just painted right over them, and they paint blue just like the rest of that.
They pretty much disappeared in the
So
picture.
back up a little bit. Next one, keep going.
You had one shot that showed it really well.
Yeah.
There you go.
There you go. See the screws?
Yeah, if you're looking for them, you see them, but if you're not looking for them, they vanish.
And there's screws down
And
here.
the ones below will get buried in scenery.
And those will be buried in scenery, and those will
They'll disappear.
disappear. You won't see them. There's actually where you can buy a capping material that you can put on the top of it so that it would go over the top and cover that, but I don't think I'm gonna get that fancy. Okay, that's it. Any questions? A lot of, but it's just gives you a view of how you build peninsulas, and I thought it was, this idea of putting that PVC siding in, I thought was pretty good stuff, so.
Wow, that's a good idea, 'cause I'm gonna need some of that.
That's worth the price of admission.
Yeah. All righty. I'm done.
Thank you.
Happy New Year and whatever else is coming up. Well, I'll just finish here. Part of my display shows you the type of equipment that Great Northern used from, you changed out at Wenatchee, you changed back at Snohomish, which is steam. Come in steam, drive the hill, go through the tunnel. Because originally when they ran steam through the tunnel, they asphyxiated all their passengers and the crew, and so they had to do something different.
All right, so let's take about a 10-minute to admire the Z's and the Y's and get down the hall if necessary, and we'll set up for Ross.
Well, good afternoon, gentlemen. Last minute addition. Something I bought a little gift for myself over this past Christmas. A micro drill press. One thing I've been really lacking in my toolkit, right? Ability.
Does that come with a 6-inch tall person?
Yeah. But it really was, I mean, it was all shiny, right? It was all shiny and pretty, and it's just like, this has got to be too good to be true.
It probably is.
It's chrome, it's brass, right? And,
Where'd you find that?
and well, it was on a Facebook ad.
Okay.
Right? And so it was $129, and I'm thinking, yikes, that's a little bit much for my modeling budget. But then a $100 gift card kind of dropped out of the sky, and I thought, you know what, for 29 bucks I can give it a shot, right? And so 3 or 4 days later, this showed up in the mail. It was exactly as advertised. It comes with a adjustable power supply, so you just plug it into the side, it's a little DC motor.
Rheostat where you control.
So yeah, so you can turn it way down if you're drilling plastic so it doesn't melt.
Yeah.
And so I've already, there's a number 80 drill bit in there that I've got
mount it, and I've already bent it, getting it here today, but that's the first thing I did. I put the 80 drill bit in and drilled some styrene and some thin brass, and it worked really nice. So, and I put a post out on the MRH forum about it, and Fugate immediately found it cheaper somewhere else.
So where's it made?
It's made in China.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's really well made. So if you want to pass that around, just take a look at it as something completely different than what was advertised. But
That we all need.
I mean, I have big plans for that little drill plant. So, anyway, but the subject it was supposed to be is about an economy loco roller stand here, right, for testing. Because I'm currently an HON3 and turned 62, so that's getting smaller every year.
I've seen it.
SN3 has always been, from the very beginning, right? Paul Scholes was my absolute, hero, and reading all of his stuff, and at one point we had it was 2000, I think it was December of 2008, we just got slaughtered with a snowstorm, right? I mean, Gresham was closed, they called out the National Guard, we were just absolutely buried in snow. And my wife had got me Paul's latest operating DVD for Christmas, and we were snowed in. So, watched the DVD, just loved it, and so I thought, well, just what the heck. So I went out to his website and just sent a message to Paul saying, love the DVDs, my wife's got them all for me, hope you make more kind of thing. I mean, it was within like an hour, I got a response. I was floored. I'm staring at the screen just in awe about Paul Scholes answered me, right? He was just the greatest guy ever, just the greatest guy ever. And he says, if you're ever in the area, stop by. Let me know, right? I said, how about next weekend? Right? The snow hadn't all melted yet. And we went up to his house the next weekend, drove up there. There was still snow everywhere, and got a private tour of the layout.
Wow.
Cool. And you're just in awe. It's like, what is it? You're in Mecca. I mean, it's just like you've made the pilgrimage to the Pelican Bay. And it's all there before you, all you've seen in all the articles, and it's just too good to be true, right? And then he turns around and says, do you want to run a train? I almost passed out. And so he let me run a train all the way around the layout and back. And it was just an awesome time. And he basically he was the greatest guy in sharing. He says, if you can ever do anything for somebody else, do it, kind of thing. And so, right? So anyway, as retirement's coming up here, hopefully in the next 4 or 5 years, as we get close, I won't go past 67. I'm sorry, that's my maximum. I'm out.
I got 10 years.
There's no way I can deal with the public anymore. I like people, the public. So anyway, I've actually accumulated a few SN3 pieces getting ready for that great day when I retire and will transition from HON3 to SN3. But I don't have a layout. I don't have anything. And so, on SN3 yet, so I thought, well, I need to be working on this thing, but I don't have any way don't have a layout, so I thought, I always wanted one of these things, but they're too expensive. And then, I run across this, oh yeah, you want to get the next one? Ran across this YouTube, and Marco had this YouTube put out a few years ago, and so I watched it, and I thought, that is really clever. That would be a really neat thing to do. But he has a 3D printer.
Oh, so he made his own stuff.
So he printed out his own little carriages there. And if you can see, he even has a little bit of a ridge where each bearing goes to hold the bearing off the face of it, so it doesn't rub on it. And so I thought, well, rats. I don't have a 3D printer. The last thing I need is another hobby, because you can't get anything done. It's either a laser cutter, a 3D printer. There's all these things that keep coming out. I'm already down the rabbit hole on Corel Draw and making my own decals and doing the artwork for that kind of stuff. And then you keep having to learn all these new things. It just never ends. You can't just, play with trains. You're always learning new stuff. So anyway, I thought, well, oh well. We'll move on. And then But then something one day got to thinking about it, is that, you know, we used to build stuff, right? Didn't we used to build stuff? We used to build stuff out of plastic. Seems to me, we used to build plastic boxes quite a bit. I even had it's even built out of an old, I think it was a buy 3, get 1 free tire sign from work. It's 50,000th inch plastic. It's a chunk, you know, about like this. So when that promotion was over, I said, we're not throwing that in the trash. I'm taking that home to recycle. So anyway, if you want to hit the next slide. So here's the pieces to it. That's the brass rod that carries the current, goes down each side. Next slide. There's the bearings off of Amazon.
Skateboard.
Right. And now,
I'm not aware of it, it says so.
he found ones that were only 2 millimeters deep. These are 3 inches or 3 millimeters wide. You just got to adjust the spacing. So I didn't worry about that. So then we're up to around 20 bucks now maybe. And then these are since I couldn't print the little spacers, here's my spacers. Got those. So next one. I already had the terminal blocks I picked up. Those are great for wiring, by the way. And the genius that he had is that if you cut it apart and take out the little metal piece that the screws go in, gee, it's almost exactly the right width to hold those bearings. You can go to the next slide. And so when you put 2 bearings on there like that, all right, it's 3/4 of an inch wide. All right, next slide. I got a bunch of plastic. So I cut a bunch of 3/4 inch strips, 3/4 inch square, drill a couple holes in the top. Next slide. And there's the mounting holes for the screws. Now, the screws were 3.5 millimeters in diameter, and the inside the bearing is 4 millimeters. It was just a little too sloppy for me. I happened to have some shrink tube laying around that would fit on there. So I just cut a little piece of shrink tube and stuck on there, shrunk it down. It's almost exactly, it's just a hair under 4 millimeters, so it works perfect. So the bearing just spins nice and free. So next slide. So now, got a whole bunch of these, just got a bunch of drill a bunch of holes and make up the side pieces. Next slide. Happen to have some nice 90-degree blocks. Just calculated what from the inside edge to the inside edge, just solve for X and figure out if I want the SN3 gauge, how far apart do I have to have those things? So, and it's not that much off from HO. It's just like maybe a 1/16 of an inch on track gauge. So you just have to adjust that bottom chunk of styrene just a little bit if you want an HO version. And next slide. So glue that in. I mean, I'm not into it hardly any dollars at all. I had to save up money for the drill.
What did I miss? The mounts for the brass bars.
That was my question.
Where did they come from?
These are what are in the terminal block, the electrical terminal block.
Those came out of those terminal straps.
These are the screws that come down to hold the wires.
Oh.
So instead of holding wires in these,
holding rods.
that's what holds the rods.
Oh, I feel like an idiot for buying these.
That's why when I first saw his YouTube, I thought that is brilliant. Oh, I've never cut one of these things. First thing I did is I went downstairs and cut one of them open and said, I'll be damned.
Which is a good possibility.
That is what it is, right? All right, so the next slide
Micromark's gonna come after you for this.
was just a matter of, hey, I finished making the box so that it's fairly sturdy. Now, if you take a real close look, you can see there are little cattywampus, because I really wasn't being real careful because I wasn't really expecting it to work. So I could have been a little more accurate with the hole drilling, made a jig and made sure that they were all exactly the same. But I didn't because it was kind of a fail fast kind of thing. Because if it doesn't work, well, I'm not really out much time or money.
So,
but it worked.
You're doing this for SN3, right?
Yes.
You said, what's the flange depth on the wheels in SN3? Because they've got a clear
Oh, yeah.
The screws.
Yes. No, it's much less than that distance there.
Okay.
It's basically a RP 25. It's same
Okay.
as HO. So, but then all you gotta do is make however many of those you need. Right? I have the C16 here, which of course gave me another problem because the center drivers are so close together, I can't fit two of them side by side, so I've got 3 out of the 4 sets supported. So I think one of these days if I get around to it, I'll borrow around to it from Jeff. I think I'll make another one of those boxes with 3
Yeah.
spaced close enough to where then you'll be able to put that in the center and then it'll support all 4. But the important part is right now it's supporting the one that has the actual drive on it, the worm and gear. So, but anyway, let's go to the next slide. Then I figured I gotta have something for the tender. I mean, you could go ahead and make more of the boxes, but then, you know, there's no sense in spending the money to buy bearings and stuff. So more of that chunk of sign, just cut up, drilled some holes to do the same exact thing with the terminal pieces from the block. Next slide. You can even see some of the sign on the bottom side. Right? And it was literally just raiding the scrap box for styrene. Next slide. And then shows the screws mounted. I used some of the washers because the screws were too long. So they would go up into the metal piece and then it would interfere with the rod going through. So just use the screws to adjust that so it didn't interfere with the rod. And then everything just slides together. So next slide. Turns out it was when I put the piece of track on there, it was just a little bit too low. So I figured out what the difference was and just made a little styrene platform.
So go back one slide. The flanges rest on the plastic?
No, that's just the underneath.
This is underneath.
Yeah. That's just the underneath of what the piece the tender's sitting on. Next slide.
So
And the next slide.
The tender's just sitting on a piece, oh,
Right.
Oh, okay.
See, so then I just put together a little short piece of track.
you could use a piece of snap track for that.
Sure.
Yep.
But
You're not
And
gonna
you-
find
and
that
you-
SN3
the SN3,
track.
I didn't have any, but I did have this laying around.
Yeah.
And then, so then because you're using a PC tie, it's real easy to just solder on a little jumper
Oh, Jesus.
to that, right? All right, next slide.
Jack Hamilton sees this, he'll steal it, guarantee it.
I just happen to have these things these are UHMW blocks, ultra high molecular weight plastic. It's that really slick, hard plastic that doesn't wear away. I think it was a set of running boards for a truck. That they use those in the packaging, right? And so one day I saw there are 20 of these things laying on the ground out there, and they're just trash. So into the recycle box they go because I'm going to use those for something someday.
You can also buy high-density plastic scrap from Tap Plastics.
Right, Tap Plastics is great. If you haven't been there,
Bad store.
yes, bad store. You'll
Bad
spend some
store.
money in there. Because I needed something to support the brass rods, and I thought, hey, I got those laying around. That's just perfect. This is a mistake, though. Do not drill the holes in the middle. Because I thought, oh, I'll be clever. I'll just put it in the middle. No, because then my middle support interferes between the tender and the engine. So I had to re-drill a second set of holes up here. So it stood it off. I was trying to keep the center of gravity low, but
For the curves.
yeah, so I just had to do that. So I think the last slide then is just the picture of what we got here. There we go. We're also, there's the current HO3 in the background. But that's the setup there. I probably will do something a little more elegant than the alligator clips at some point, but it works. So we use our high-tech setup here.
Wow.
Look it up at the power connector.
And away we go.
Yeah.
And now it's great for running it in. I'm sure I can get the power draw down a little bit because right now it was a little over 400 milliamps that it's drawing, and I don't think it should be drawing that much. But it's probably never had anything done to it from the time it was manufactured. It's probably just set on the shelf somewhere.
So with these little circular things, does that slide on your rod?
Yes,
And
yeah.
then you screw it and tighten it?
No.
So you-
They just slide.
They just slide,
Just
they're
friction.
loose.
Yeah, they're just,
Okay.
so you can adjust
So
for
you can
different.
adjust them along
Yeah.
for any set of wheels?
And because the wheels drop in between two
Yeah.
bearings, it holds it in place.
Yeah, I mean, that's the way they all work, right? I suppose if one had just fallen into a laser printer recently, they could laser out the side pieces and then you could cut the center
No, there are versions
spacers.
where you tighten them down.
Yeah, and then you could, it just has to be non-conductive between the two sides. But I just thought it was brilliant that he used the terminal strip, tearing it apart.
I think,
Um,
don't let Jack Hamilton see this and feel it.
So, go out and search the YouTube and watch his video. I don't know, I think he's probably like Dutch or Norwegian
Now, the one
or
he
something.
built was for what scale, HO?
HO, right.
Now, how difficult would it be to convert it down to HO in 3? Would it still be enough clearances in there?
Depends upon what engine.
Okay, no, I was just curious.
I would assume you could. I don't know why you
I
couldn't.
think the idea is, are the bearings too wide to?
Are they gonna interfere with each other?
Yeah, it all depends upon the, you know,
That'd be my concern.
a 440 or something you could probably do. Maybe see a T12, I think you're gonna run into the same problem as the C16 where they got the two drivers that are so close together.
Okay.
But it's, you know, it literally doesn't cost a whole lot.
I'm just
It's
saying,
it's
this is-
pretty cheap.
Learn by the mistakes of others.
It's
You
pretty
made-
cheap.
You made a mistake, that's fine.
Pretty cheap.
How to modify it.
But now I've got a test set up where as I work on the engines, I can just set them there on the test. Plus, they need to do this anyway to break in. Once you've got it all done, and you need some time. I think Paul said I forget, it was something like 20 hours or something he'd run when he had a new engine. He'd run it 20 hours one direction, 20 hours the next direction to make sure everything was broke in.
Plus, this looks a lot sturdier than the manufactured ones that you buy from MicroArt. Yeah, they're not anywhere near as robust as these are.
Right. Well,
This is a really
They're not
good
bad.
idea.
every once in a while, even a blind squirrel finds a nut. So. But anyway, and then also the other rabbit hole kind of is the custom decals. So that's just kind of a quick printout to say, do I really like that or not? So
Colorful.
yeah. Well, it is going to be 1885. So passenger engines are much more ornate. Freight engines, they were pretty much black by then. But the Denver and Rio Grande did have that very similar about that time frame. So I don't know. Jury's still out. We'll see. If you need custom decals made, Bill Brillinger up in Canada does fantastic. He's easy to work with, reasonably priced, and they're really nice.
You said you did decals too.
Huh?
I thought you said you did decals.
Well, I do the artwork and then I send it up to Bill in Canada and
And he prints it
he
out.
prints it, drains the bank account and then sends me the decals.
Okay.
I thought,
He did
Automate.
Mobile Lamb at Western
Oh,
once
yeah,
too.
and they're really good. They're really,
He-
and the detail, they can get down, he's got, I forget what that printer of his does, but it prints white. That's the, yeah, the box, I've got a boxcar back there. And those are his decals too, the white decals.
And it is a laser printer, it is not an Alps.
Right.
So he can do any kind of a decal.
Yep, you just gotta provide him the artwork. Well, actually, he'll even do the artwork.
He'll do artwork too.
He'll charge you for it,
Yeah.
but,
Yes, he did.
So I-
Yeah.
what I'm thinking is all the great northern details that are available are now side-facing goats, where in my time period,
there you go,
they had the forward-facing goats.
there you go,
And they don't make those decals anymore, and I'm looking for
there you go.
getting.
You can get that, get the artwork and
Well, you can-
reverse it.
You can just pull the artwork off of,
Yeah.
they've
Only
got
face
them
money.
online.
There you go, yeah, and flip it and then send it up to him.
Okay.
I think he even makes decals, it doesn't necessarily have to be a vector file even.
Yeah.
I think he'll use
I
a,
sent him JPEGs.
yeah,
No, what he'll do is he'll convert it to a vector,
right,
even if he
Okay.
has to redraw it.
right.
So what's the name of the guy?
Bill Brillinger. It's
PDC.
Yeah, pdc.ca.
They are an MRH advertiser.
Yep.
Oh, is he on
He's in the marketplace.
In the marketplace book, okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Long been on the forum, so.
Okay.
Yep.
I'll look.
Yeah, just search,
Because I've been thinking how I'm gonna get forward-facing
oh yeah,
goats.
that'd be the easy way to do it.
At least three of us have used it.
Chapticals to save you.
Yeah, yeah, Champ doesn't make it anymore.
Anyway, that's it. Thank you for your attention.
Great.
Thank you for your time.
No problem. Hopefully gave you some ideas.
Ross,
Yeah, but not good ideas.
Steel Tire said they want their sign back.
Yeah.